On a cold February morning in 1818, Frederick Douglass was born into slavery in Talbot County, Maryland. His mother was a slave, and his father was believed to be a white man, though his identity was never confirmed. Frederick was separated from his mother at a young age, which left him with a burning desire for knowledge and freedom. His early life was one of hardship, but even in the face of adversity, he began to dream of a life beyond the chains of slavery. Little did the world know, this young boy would grow to become one of the most influential voices in the fight for freedom. Douglass's early years were marked by extreme hardship. He was subjected to harsh conditions under the ownership of several masters. His first exposure to reading came when his mistress, Sophia Old, began teaching him the alphabet. But when her husband forbade her from continuing the lessons, Douglass was undeterred. He learned to read in secret, using every opportunity to educate himself. His thirst for knowledge grew stronger, and he began to realize that education was the key to his liberation. This quiet rebellion would set the foundation for his future. At the age of 16, Douglass was sent to work for a man named Edward Covey, who was known for his brutal treatment of slaves. Covey tried to break Douglass's spirit, but the young man refused to be defeated. After a brutal beating, Douglass fought back, and in that moment, something inside him shifted. He realized that physical punishment could never break his spirit, and from that day forward, he vowed to resist. This pivotal moment in his life marked the beginning of his journey toward freedom, but it was only the beginning of a much larger battle. Douglass's desire for freedom continued to burn within him. In 1838, at the age of 20, he made a daring escape from slavery. Disguised as a free black sailor, he boarded a train and traveled to the north. His journey was perilous, but after several days of travel, Douglass arrived in New York City, a free man. This act of courage was a turning point in his life. It marked the beginning of his fight for freedom, not only for himself but for all enslaved people. His escape was a symbolic victory, but the real work was only beginning. Upon arriving in the North, Douglass made it his mission to speak out against the horrors of slavery. He became a passionate abolitionist, using his own experiences as a slave to highlight the brutal realities of the institution. He gave lectures, wrote articles, and eventually published his autobiography, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. His writing and speeches became powerful tools in the fight for the abolition of slavery. Douglass's eloquence and first-hand account of slavery made him an invaluable voice for the abolitionist movement. By the early 1840s, Douglass had gained widespread recognition as an abolitionist leader. However, his rise to prominence was not without challenges. He faced intense opposition from pro-slavery groups who sought to discredit him. But Douglass, unwavering in his commitment to justice, continued to speak out. He traveled across the country, inspiring thousands with his story and advocating for the freedom of all enslaved people. His bravery in the face of danger and his unshakable belief in equality made him a symbol of hope for those who sought liberation. During the Civil War, Douglass's influence grew even more significant. He met with President Abraham Lincoln and urged him to make the abolition of slavery a central goal of the war. Douglass was instrumental in recruiting African American soldiers for the Union Army, believing that their participation would help secure their freedom and prove their worth to the nation. His advocacy for emancipation and equality for African Americans aligned with Lincoln's vision for a united country, and in 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was issued, freeing enslaved people in Confederate territories. After the Civil War ended in 1865, Douglass continued his tireless work to ensure that the newly freed African Americans had equal rights. He became a key advocate for the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which abolished slavery, granted citizenship to all people born in the U.S., and protected voting rights for African American men. Douglass's political and social activism helped to lay the foundation for civil rights movements that would come later. He worked with leaders like Susan B. Anthony, pushing for the recognition of women's rights alongside those of African Americans. In his later years, Douglass continued to fight for justice, particularly in the area of racial equality. He was appointed to several government positions, including U.S. Marshal for the District of Columbia and Minister to Haiti. Throughout these roles, Douglass advocated for policies that would uplift African Americans, ensuring they had access to education, fair wages, and political representation. Despite the many accomplishments in his life, Douglass remained deeply committed to equality, pushing for a future where all people, regardless of race or gender, could live with dignity. Frederick Douglass passed away in 1895. But his legacy lives on as one of the most powerful voices in American history. From his humble beginnings as a slave to his rise as a national leader and advocate for equality, Douglass's life was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. He inspired generations of activists and remains a symbol of the ongoing struggle for freedom and justice. His story continues to resonate, reminding us all of the importance of perseverance, knowledge, and the unyielding fight for equality.